Well, it all comes down to this. Browns and Bengals, Week 18. Not a lot to play for these two teams, but plenty of questions awaiting them on the other side. It's a Browns roundtable pregame conversation. I'm Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin alongside on the home front as we get you set for a 1 o'clock kick between the Browns and the Bengals to wrap up the 2025 regular season. And Megs, where else to start but with all the noise surrounding the Cleveland Browns coming into this one, specifically in relation to the leadership changes that are likely awaiting them on the other side, if you will. We kind of know what's coming here. All signs point to Kevin Stefanski being fired after this game in some timeline, whether it's right after, tomorrow morning, whatever it might be. It does sound like there's going to be at least a discussion had about sort of the future before they make any of these decisions, but it sounds like Kevin Stefanski is going to be out. Andrew Berry's going to get to stay, and the Browns are going to sort of blaze this new future with a new head coach from this point forward. I guess and my initial sort of feeling on all this is, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, it's not a surprise when you win 7, maybe 8 games over 2 seasons, everything is fair game, and your job's going to be evaluated that way. That's kind of the nature of the beast. But there's some other parts of this that I think we need to get into too, just in terms of, is firing Kevin enough? Because, I think the problems with this organization, there certainly have been some issues with him, especially this year. But it doesn't all fall in his lap, in my estimation.
Yeah, no, it's the story kind of came to light pretty rapidly, I would say. I mean, it's something we talk about every single week, but then this week it was like, all right, here's kind of the plan. Diana Rossini started getting some leaks. Jordan Schultz started getting some leaks as well. And it's like, okay, when there's smoke, there's fire, and real national people starting to get their hands on the story is obviously telling of what's going to happen. But you're right. I think that's the tough part about all of this is that, there's a lot of factors into it. And the truth of the matter is that they took a big swing and a miss 3 years ago. Whoever did it, whether it was DePodesta, whether it was Stefanski or Andrew Berry or Jimmy Haslam, but they traded a bunch of assets for a quarterback who can't play football or is not very good, and they're reaping the benefits of that, or they're not the benefits of it, but they're suffering.
Maybe it's reaping the repercussions of that.
Yeah, the repercussions, the consequences of it. It's the truth, man. It's like everything goes back to it. I saw a bunch of tweets, just even last night talking about, some of the teams that we watch playing, specifically the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. And it was like, yeah, the 49ers, it was the Seahawks, and they listed out all of their first and second round picks, and somebody compared it to the Browns' first and second round picks over the last 4 seasons. And there was like 4 or 5 of them because Cleveland just traded all their assets away. And that's the swing they took. It didn't work. They struck out, and heads will have to roll because of it. And it's unfortunate because, I've been on this show every week and, all year long for 2 years saying that I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. They're going to lose a good coach out of it. He'll get hired very quickly in some way, shape, or form. But, yeah, that's where it gets sticky for me is like, why does Berry stay? Because it feels like now Berry's going to be a lame duck. But you and I were texting about it yesterday. Did last year's draft of him hitting on almost every pick outside of maybe Dylan Gabriel, did that save his job? And does that give the organization the belief that he can do that? A lot of them were on defense. Does that give the organization the belief that he can do that on the offensive side and flip this thing around? Because that's the only really way I see that rationale making sense.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big question here. And real quick, to just go back to Kevin, like I agree with you, especially like when Kevin first got here, I felt he was a really good hire. I feel like he's a good coach. I don't think he forgot how to coach offense. I just think he lost the plot with his offense this year. When he was calling the plays, that was not the offense that we saw back in 2020 when he first took the reins, and he had to go with play calling again. When that happens in back-to-back years, and I do look around this league and I see other teams that have injury issues and lack of talent issues, and they're finding ways to win football games. There's just no creativity at times. So again, Kevin is not blameless in this. And I think he understands, like, it's the nature of the beast. You're not getting results in the field. Your job's in the line. Like, I think all coaches understand that. And so it's not that I'm trying to, advocate Kevin Stefanski needs to stay or whatever. But in some respects, if it's him who goes, and it sounds like, again, that's going to be the case after this game, and Berry stays, it feels like he is getting scapegoated for all the issues that exist with this team. And no matter how you want to slice this thing up, the biggest issue this team had was that they had a lack of talent, specifically on the offensive side of the football, and that's Kevin Stefanski's dojo. And so I don't know how anybody expected him to, make a gourmet recipe out of ingredients bought at,
At Aldi.
Dollar
I
Tree.
shop at Aldi. I shop at Aldi.
No, I didn't say Aldi. I said Dollar Tree. Sorry, Dollar Tree. But no, like I just it's and that's the overarching point for me is like
Germ,
if it's gonna if someone's getting fired, everybody has to get fired, in my opinion, because this mess is created by both parties, and they've been tied to each other from the beginning.
Yeah.
From the beginning, it was we're in this together. They are still in this together. Their contracts align for a reason. Like I just can't. I think if you're making changes, and I think it probably is time for some change, it has to be both parties. Or if you're the Hasms, you go against the grain, you go against conventional wisdom, and you just keep them both and say, I trust these guys both moving forward. I think splitting them up is the silliest outcome that can come out of this.
And Spence, I agree with that because I agreed with it when they brought them both in, because the rationale was, all right, we're bringing these two in, they're teammates in this, they're going to build this thing together, and like that's going to be their way. And you see it kind of all over the league when these teams get when the GM and the coach don't see eye to eye, then there's more issues that become of it. But these two are linked together. But I do think this always stood out to me, Spence, was that when Kevin gave up the play calling, and every time on TV they would cut to him, and he didn't have a play sheet in his hand. He just kind of had his arms crossed, wasn't really talking all that much. And it's like, all right, what are you doing? like what is your role in all of this? Because even, you look around the league, Dan Campbell, some of these guys, even if they're not calling plays, they're locked in, they're talking, look at Mike Vrabel, right? He's not calling plays, but he's got a play sheet in front of him. And like Kevin was just kind of over there hanging out, and you're like, all right, dude, like what exactly are you doing? And what is your role on this team? Because it doesn't look like it's much. And that kind of stood out to me. And I wonder, probably didn't play a factor, but I wonder if that was always that kind of caught the attention of some too.
Well, to that point, like, some of the things that I'm sure did Kevin in are the fact that, he wasn't calling plays anymore, and there were still decisions being made that were questionable on the field. Like that fourth down call several weeks back with where you put Harold Fannin at quarterback and it's like a direct snap to him. Like I understand you're trying to run a play you have confidence in, but you're taking the players that are sort of always doing that off the field in a key situation, and that costs you a game. Certain situations going for two or going for it on fourth down, like when those decisions aren't working and you're not calling plays anymore, it's like, okay, so what are you providing here? I think you're 100% right that it all kind of adds up to that. And so, yeah, I think ultimately, like, there's reasons why Kevin is likely to get fired after this game today. But I think they both. I guess go back to they're both in this together. Go ahead.
What's your perspective on because I think about after I said that first part, I kind of think about it too. Like, all right, if they're going to keep Barry around and he gets to kind of hand select his next coach or the next coach or however that's going to work.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
well,
be an organizational decision. But does that also kind of align of like, all right, it gives Barry some more runway, but he also he's going to get a coach they're going to kind of be the same teammate, if you will.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. And I don't know that we can like vet it all in this pregame conversation. I don't want to like waste too much time on that specifically. Yeah, no, you're okay. I think this is a really good conversation that we'll get into. But what I will say is, normally when you see these things, and I actually want to go look up like how many times in like the last 10 years, like a coach was fired and then the GM picked the coach and then like what happened to that GM. But the Titans are the latest example I have of Mike Vrabel got fired because they hired a new GM. And then within a year, that GM was fired. They hired a new coach and GM. And now like they're rehiring another coach. Like it just kind of perpetuates the cycle. It never usually works out like where the GM gets to stay for a long period of time. So we'll talk about that some more on a pod episode. It's a really good question in terms of like what this thing will look like. And obviously we have to wait for the news to come down that Kevin actually is fired first. But this is all things we could talk about. But I sort of go into this thing skeptical of how it'll work if this is how it's actually going to go down. Along those lines, though, in terms of the future and what this thing looks like, Shedeur Sanders obviously has a chance to sort of punctuate his rookie season, his 6 starts, his 7th today, and see what he can do as a closing argument or a closing statement to convince the Browns that he's worth investing in longer term into the future. I think it's, if he has a big game today, I think it makes it a lot easier for people to swallow and say, all right, we're fully into this guy. If it's a rough outing, which honestly, I think today's an uphill battle. He's not going to have Harold Fannin Jr. Other offensive weapons, as we know, have gotten hurt this season. Quinshon Judkins is done. The offensive line is sort of like this rotating cast of characters every single week. So I don't know how much success he's even being set up for here. But whether or not he puts up big numbers, I think he still has to be plan A next year, or at least like, hey, he's competing for the job as our maybe first option, especially if Barry's still going to be here. But at the same time, like, it would go a long way, I think, in ending the season with a strong performance that at least makes that argument more sound and makes people feel better about the direction of things.
There's no doubt. And when I think back, 3-4 weeks ago, we looked at the end of the season where it was Bears, Bills, Steelers, Bengals, and he got opportunities against 3 playoff teams in Joe Burrow. And you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a really good test for him to see how he goes. Thought he played well against the Bills. Thought he played horrible against the Bears. Thought he played well against the Bills. Played solid last week, and he's got a chance today. But the biggest thing for me is like, he does so much. He does so well at the start of the game, right? They come out.
It's funny. I was going to bring up this exact same thing, like the first half versus second half discrepancy.
Yes.
What goes on there? And I think that is a very valid question for him and for this offense.
And that could honestly be like young player, defense is making some adjustments in the second half or getting into the second half and really just making it tougher. But also too, like, I think for me, you've seen growth in some areas, right? We've seen him stay in the pocket. We've seen him be accurate down the field. We've seen him make better throws, layered throws, all that stuff. But the dumb decisions popped up every single week, right? We think about the interception last week. That was horrible. He was trying to throw it away, didn't get out of bounds by like 10 yards, and it was just an easy pick. You think about the one last week that Nick Herbig should have intercepted for a touchdown, but he dropped it. But like, cut the dumb decision out and just continue to make solid decisions, not even just early in the game, but throughout the rest of the game. And I think that will provide me, at least as I'm watching it, a bunch of confidence. I'm not thinking he's going to go throw for 350 today and have 3 touchdowns, right? I don't think that's realistic, but I do think that if he doesn't turn the ball over, completes a bunch of passes, is efficient with the offense, operates a couple scoring drives, I think that that's a positive that we can all take away from this game, and that's what I'm gonna have my eyes on.
Hopefully you can hear me over the national anthem. I don't know, but
we're good. We got you.
Okay. But yeah, obviously Shedeur punctuating his performance is going to be a big one today. I think you're right. We've seen a lot of growth from him over his 6 starts, and he has a chance to kind of finish it today. We're showing some more of that and leave people at least intrigued for 2026, and we'll see what it kind of looks like from there. The other big story today, Megs, of course, is Myles trying to get the sack record. He's been so close for the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks, now 3 weeks. Comes into this one needing 1 sack to break the current record by a half a sack. And, I think it's going to be interesting today because while the Steelers were clear, I mean, every team is worried about Myles. They obviously game plan around Myles, but like, while it felt like the Steelers were like extra alert to not let him get the record, I think Joe Burrow is kind of not cool with it, but I think just kind of accepts like, listen, we're a passing offense. We're going to be dropping back a lot. I'm going to be out here, and I know Myles is going to get me. He's gotten me before. He'll get me again. So I think there's this is probably the best chance over the last 3 weeks that he has to break it. And my only hope is he gets a couple so that it's not this like fluke thing where we talk about an asterisk next to the record and all that, like where it can be like, yeah, well, he surpassed it by 2 or 3. So it makes it more legitimate. He didn't just eke it out and need that last game to get there. But yeah, I feel pretty good about him actually breaking it today.
That I share the exact same thoughts that you do, because I think Joe Burrow is cool with it. And matter of fact, I feel like Joe Burrow wants it to happen. Like, hey, come get me. Like, come get me today. I'm going to be dropping back. Not like in a challenging way, but like, yeah, we're going to be dropping back. We're not going to. Every time I think back to last week's game, it just pisses me off, to be honest with you, on how the Steelers kind of operated it, because it's so clear that they were just like, don't let him get the sack. And like, how stupid is that? Because now for their season, they could be in the playoffs for sure, 100%. Instead, they decided they won a Sunday night football game against the Ravens to decide that. But regardless of all that, I do think Joe is like, yeah, like, let's go. We're going to drop back and we're going to give him an opportunity to do it. Now come do it, right? Now, and so I think that's going to be cool. I do think he'll get it today. And I was just looking through some pictures of those two while I was setting up for our show today. And there just seems to be like a mutual respect between the both of them. I feel like they're both going through similar things in their respective franchises. Like, they're both elite talents. They're both on teams that aren't very good. They're both have had a couple seasons that are regrettable over the past couple years, and they're like, man, they still go to war every week for their team. They still go to war every week for their city, and it feels very mutual between the two, which I think's pretty cool.
We got round 2 of the national anthem. You guys are getting a preview of what it's going to sound like for the game. So there you go.
I've never heard it before,
no, listen,
so
I think that's all well said. Hopefully he gets it done today. He this week talked about having supreme confidence he was going to get it done. So we'll see what that sort of necessitates or what that produces. But his last chance to do so, and what's going to be, I think, maybe the one silver lining to the season, other than the rookie class. The rookie class has obviously been amazing. But the one silver lining to all this will be, hey, it was a bad year, another losing season for the Browns. Coach is probably getting fired, but we had this great story to root for with Myles, and he's now the sack king, and he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year probably again. So there is at least that one positive thing that you can kind of take away from all this, is if he gets it done today, and I think people are going to be rooting for it as well. So, all right, it's the portion of the program that we always save for last. Our predictions for the game, a bold prediction for the game, which mine the last couple weeks haven't been that bold. I admit. But, Megs, I always like to let you go first. What's your prediction? What's your bold prediction?
Yeah, I think that today my game prediction to start, I do think it's going to be one of those weird games. And this is probably, if you're looking big picture, and I know there's a lot of folks out there that are like, hey, draft pick. I'm more so in the camp of football games should be about playing football and winning football games. And I do think that Cleveland comes out today for whatever reason and plays well. I just have this weird feeling. I think the Bengals, for as bad as the vibes are in Cleveland, I think they're equally and potentially maybe worse down in Cincinnati. And I do think the Browns are going to put up a fight today. I think Shedeur is going to play solid, not great. I'm not expecting like I said, a 300-yard day from him, but I do hope to see that next step in his growth, in his production of, hey, cut the dumb play out and be efficient throughout the game. So I got the Browns competing all game long. I got Myles getting the sack record, and I've got the Cleveland Browns winning 23-20. Do you want me to do my bold prediction now, or do you want to go first?
I can go with my prediction first. No. I think I talked about it a little bit, but like no Harold Fannin in this game, no Carson Schlesinger in this game. I think it's going to be an uphill climb, just as a team in general, especially with what's looming on the other side, all the changes that are likely to happen. Not that that's like, the team's been playing hard, so they've kind of blocked a lot of that out to this point already. But I don't know. I think it's just too much to overcome. I think they put up a decent fight. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to play pretty well today. This Bengals defense is awful.
Yeah.
But I think they probably fall a little bit short. I wanted to make sure my score included a couple Andre Schmidt field goals. He gets a little redemption for week 1 because that's my guy. 27-20 though, Bengals get it done. This Bengals offense has just been so damn good. I think they've scored 82 points the last 2 weeks, and they've scored 30 plus in 4 of the last 5 games. Like, they are rolling. It's not going to be enough to get them to the playoffs, obviously, but I think it's probably a little bit too much for them to overcome. They put up a valiant fight, but fall a little bit short, 27-20. What is your bold prediction, Megs, for the game?
My bold prediction, it's not going to be – I'm not going out of left field here, but I do think this one is bold because I think the Browns, like you said, are beat up everywhere. I think they keep Jamar Chase out of the end zone. That's my bold prediction. Jamar Chase doesn't score, and if he doesn't score, that gives some credence to my game prediction. So I'm calling that Jamar Chase doesn't score a touchdown, and it helps lead the Browns to their win.
Okay, well, first of all, I do think Myles gets multiple sacks today, so I'll say that to punctuate the sack record. I also am going to say Tyson Campbell.
Oh, yes.
Interception today.
Yes.
Interception today for Tyson Campbell. I think that's a pretty good one, right? That's decently bold, I would say.
I love that guy.
Here's the thing. Everyone's staying away from Denzel Ward, and everyone's throwing the opposite way. And Tyson Campbell's had a great season, even with people doing that. I think today's the day he's opportunistic, gets a pick, and I think it's a big one that maybe leads to a score for the Browns.
Spence, it's so right, and it's funny. I think he's been such a good trade for Cleveland. He just gets targeted so damn much that he has to give up at least something. But talk about a guy who, out of all the players in the league, the guy with the worst luck has got to be Tyson Campbell. He gets traded from Jacksonville, who's going to be the 1, 2, or 3 seed, and is potentially playing the hottest football in all of the NFL to Cleveland for just bad dumpster fire disaster
And a coaching change.
and coaching changes and all that stuff. That's tough. It's tough. And the winner of that's Greg Newsome, obviously. But hey, that's a song for another time.
Certainly is. That's going to do it for us here for this pregame conversation. But make sure you subscribe to our channel here, Browns Roundtable on YouTube, and obviously the website as well, brownsroundtable.com. You can use the QR code at the top of the screen there that Megs just threw up. If you want to scan that and make it get easy access to the link to the website, it's there for you. But yes, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we'll be back post game to talk through whatever happens. We'll have more thoughts on the Kevin Stefanski thing, I'm sure, and what's coming for him on the other side of what's his last game, probably as Browns head coach. Maybe we can get into the Barry stuff as well. We'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure. Myles, if he gets the sack record, lots of good stuff there. So subscribe to the channel. Join us over at brownsroundtable.com throughout the game. We'll have our live game thread going. And, of course, post-game stories and all that good stuff as well. We appreciate you being part of our community. Enjoy this football game one last time, likely, for Kevin Stefanski and for this season. We will talk to you afterwards. Keep on following along, as always, with all things Browns with Browns Roundtable.